Thank you for the introduction. My name is Tyler Farmer. I'm from the County of San Diego. I'm a group program manager, and today I'm going to be here to discuss the Organic Materials Ordinance Update Project, which is a really dry name for a project that is looking to make modifications to another very technical term, something called the zoning ordinance. And what we're looking to do is try to make composting and organic material management easier within the unincorporated county. For those that may not know, the zoning ordinance itself is a planning tool which identifies what types of activities can occur on which type of land within the unincorporated county. But it also can include some requirements that can protect public health and safety, such as noise limitations, requirements for best practices, and other. And currently, the county zoning ordinance does include several references to composting and organic material management. However, these are in different sections, they act independently, and they use old language. So the efforts of this ongoing project are to update and modernize this document and make it easier to process organic materials in the county of San Diego. Overall, we want to divert organic materials from the landfill. As many people within this symposium know, a large percentage of materials that are making it to our landfills are organic materials. And composting and other types of organic materials processing are just a really good alternative where these materials can go. So this project does support the development of organic material and composting sites. But when we do this, we want to also take time to make sure through this effort that we're making that zoning ordinance easier to use and easier to navigate as well, and helping us set up these comprehensive standards. But while we do this, we want to protect public health and safety, and overall, this project will help advance sustainability goals. As all of us know, when organic materials go to the landfill, they create methane. So this project will look to help our climate action planning efforts, waste diversion efforts, and other sustainability goals. So here, we have a slide that kind of shows where this project will apply. First, you have our whole county highlighted in blue here. But this area highlighted for the county includes our incorporated cities. And as I indicated in the opening slide, our efforts focus on the unincorporated county. So when we take out the incorporated cities, that 2.9 million acres has dropped down to 2.2 million. However, within the unincorporated county, we still have a mix of our tribal lands, military installations, state and federal lands as well. So when you take out those areas and you look at where the County of San Diego has this land use control or land use authority, you get this remaining area in blue on this slide, which is just over 770,000 acres. So when we talk about the zoning ordinance and we talk about this project, it applies to these areas highlighted in blue. Some other quick foundational items about this project are the types of terms that we use when we talk about organic materials, and then also on the next slide when we talk about organic materials processing. Now the terms you see on this slide are the terms that we are using that we gathered from CalRecycle's definition for these terms as well. When we look for the supporting of diversion of organic materials, we're talking about our green materials, tree and yard trimmings. We're also talking about those materials derived from our farm, manures, crop residues, and others. And then we also have two subsets of food definitions. We have our food that comes from our restaurants and grocery stores. The ones that include the salts, the fats, the oils. But also we have our vegetative foods, fruits, vegetables, coffee grounds, and other non-processed foods. When we talk about organic material processing, I've showed some examples of what we refer to. We have our open air composting practices. On the top of the screen here, you'll see our static piles. As many of us know here, our static piles can include some accessories that help break down those organic materials into that nutrient-rich soil. Whether it's an aerated system that pumps in air and oxygen to help break it down, or a covered system as well. And in addition to the static piles, we show the windrow as well. And our windrows here, these are the long runs of composting piles that can be either returned mechanically or manually. But as we're looking to update the zoning ordinance, we're not just looking at these open air composting as well, but we're also looking at the in-vessel options and show a couple examples below. And these can include your aerobic and anaerobic operations as well. And then finally, we also want to include processes that have that additional catalyst to break down those materials. whether that's our vermicomposting or using worms to help break that material, or other insects as well. So currently, within the zoning ordinance, we've mapped out a little bit of a system here that shows how the zoning ordinance shapes how organic materials are managed in the unincorporated county. So in this slide, I'm going to walk you through how the zoning ordinance impacts these different areas. And we show our generators on the top, our sites where a lot of the organic materials come from, whether that's our farm, our residential areas, or our businesses and restaurants. And then also we include the community gardens because they play a part in the system of organic materials within the unincorporated county. And then I'll show here through a series of click of how different organic materials can move through these systems. And the yellow or orange type of line, that's going to be a stream that goes to the landfill. And then the green area will represent composting or recycling of organic materials. So first, we have our central locations, whether that's a landfill or an organic material processing site. But our farms are the first thing to discuss for a zoning ordinance. And you'll see a couple of green arrows that are highlighting around one of our farms here. So currently within the zoning ordinance, farmers are allowed to manage their own materials on their site to break down to that nutrient-rich soil and then apply it to their farms. However, when farms either have an excess of materials that they can't manage on their own site, maybe they have site constraints, or maybe they don't have the right mix of materials to do composting, then that excess material needs to head towards one of these central locations, whether that's a landfill or to an organic material processing site. Similarly, our residential neighborhoods or residential generators can manage their own materials or their household waste within a backyard setting as well. But when they have excess, it goes into those central locations, whether that's the landfill or, again, an organic material site. These central locations are also options for our businesses and restaurants or our commercial operations. And then our community gardens are allowed to manage materials within the community garden as well. However, that community garden setting and that composting that's allowed there is limited to those community garden members. So what you'll see in this diagram right now, the way the zoning ordinance currently acts, you see a very linear system. You have a couple of options, whether it's a farm, residence, or community gardens, where some materials can be managed on site, but after that, it heads into that central system. And what you don't have here is our farms allowed having allowances for accepting offsite materials. And similarly, that ends up then going into that central stream. So this is kind of where it creates an opportunity for this project to find new ways for managing organic materials within the county. So as we were going through the project, we first identified a tiered system, going off the example we see from the state, which is based on volume and materials. And within this tiered system, you can have small operations that don't have any impact to the broader, community that may be exempt or have a simple over-the-counter form. But then as the size and intensity of those facilities increase, your permits and requirements and regulations will also increase. And then the far end of it, you'll have permit procedures that require a full public review. And initially, we identified our agricultural operations as being that great opportunity for collecting offsite materials. So this would be like a new aspect and a change to the zoning ordinance to make this easier. However, when we went out first with this project to the public, we got a lot of really great feedback from stakeholders and residents, whether it was our compost operators, our farmers, our general residents, community planning and sponsor groups, waste advocates, members from the Farm Bureau and members from so many other organizations and groups we talked to. We got a lot of great feedback of general interest in community composting, making sure that the best practices really make sure that odors and pests are managed well, and alignment with that state procedures as I was speaking about. So we got a lot of this really good feedback, and we're looking at options of ways we can further refine our project to meet more of the communication we're receiving about this type of effort. We've done a lot of collection of that feedback, and we've done some internal processing and analysis of that. And within a few weeks here, we're going to be releasing some changes to that initial project concept we were providing out to the public last year. And then after that, we're really looking forward for additional feedback on that as we proceed to get this project across the finish line later this year. So appreciate the opportunity to talk about what we're doing here related to the zoning ordinance for organic material management within the unincorporated county. I left my contact information here and happy to provide it in the chat as well. But thank you for the opportunity to present.